Hi, everyone. Today I'll be discussing how the blue humanities and sense of place are seen in Kathy Jetnil Kijiner's poem, Rise from One Island to Another. Kathy Jetnil Kijiner is a young poet and climate activist from the Marshall Islands. She shared her poetry at the United Nations Climate Summit in New York in 2014. And then last week, she brought her urgent message about the impact of climate change on her homeland to the Conference of Parties, known as COP26, to Glasgow, Scotland. For this Ecomedia presentation, I'll be discussing her poem, Rise from One Island to Another, and the environmental issues it touches upon, including sense of place, the blue humanities, indigenous sovereignty, and environmental justice. You can click on the URL to view the video of this poem being performed with music and compelling images. And I'll also include a textual analysis of the poem in the following slides. For context, I want to briefly discuss some of the blue humanities issues addressed in our readings this week, and then show how they're illustrated in this poem. As we learn in Epeli Halfa's essay, Our Sea of Islands, Oceania is a vast area in the Pacific Ocean with deep indigenous connections. Halfa writes that the world of our ancestors was a large sea full of places to explore, to make their homes in, to breed generations of seafarers like themselves. People raised in this environment were home to the sea. Theirs was a large world in which peoples and cultures moved and mingled unhindered by boundaries of the kind erected much later by imperial powers. For the blue humanities, connection to place includes both land and water. Water literally and figuratively connects native islanders, is a life-giving force, and signifies ancestral heritage as deep as the vast ocean. Although the island nations and their inhabitants have been historically minimized by colonizers in a relationship of dominance and subordination, which Halfa refers to as derogatory and belittling, she contends, the world of Oceania is not small. It is huge and growing bigger every day. And yet, because of climate change, the sea is rising, threatening to swallow vulnerable places like the Marshall Islands on which Kathy Jetnil Kijiner lives. The poem is a conversation between two islanders, Kathy Jetnil Kijiner, the sister of ocean and sand from the Marshall Islands, and Naviana, the sister of ice and snow from Greenland. And the audience is the people of the developed world, all of us. These two opening stanzas speak of their shared circumstances, their connection to place and indigenous heritage. Sister of ice and snow, I'm coming to you from the land of my ancestors, from atolls, sunken volcanoes, undersea descent of sleeping giants. Sister of ocean and sand, I welcome you to the land of my ancestors, to the land where they sacrificed their lives to make mine possible, to the land of survivors. That last line, to the land of survivors, hints at the islanders' strength, perseverance, resistance to settler colonial imperialism, and determination to assert autonomy, a theme which is repeated throughout the poem. In the following stanzas, descriptions of ice, stone, sand, and shells of a country more sea than land reveal an interconnected web of life where, despite historic upheaval, the two sisters remain rooted by a lesson in permanence. The inhabitants of these islands are protected by the Mother of the Sea, who lives in a cave at the bottom of the ocean. She is the symbolic guardian of Oceania, who reminds them to respect their home and stay true to the ways of their ancestors. Hinting at the threat of industrialization and influence in the modern world, Mother of the Sea sees the greed in our hearts, the disrespect in our eyes, every whale, every stream, every iceberg, and her children. But what happens when they don't heed her warning? She defends her children and delivers a lesson of respect. Do we deserve the melting ice, the hungry polar bears coming to our islands, or the colossal icebergs hitting these waters with rage? Do we deserve their mother coming for our homes, for our lives? These are the symbols of climate change. This is where we witness the brutality that results when the sacred bond is broken. These two stanzas, and those that follow, represent a disconnection from place, where the two sisters mourn their impending loss of their home and fear for its future amidst the colonizing monster that is, to this day, devours our lives for their pleasure. Let me show you the tide that comes for us faster than we'd like to admit. Let me show you airports underwater, bulldozed reefs, blasted sands, and plans to build new atolls, forcing land from an ancient rising sea, forcing us to imagine turning ourselves to stone. Sister of ocean and sand, can you see our glaciers groaning with the weight of the world's heat? I wait for you here on the land of my ancestors, heart heavy with a thirst for solutions as I watch this land change with the world while the world remains silent. But instead of relinquishing their home, the two sisters vow to resist, embracing their heritage that's firmly rooted in place through the symbol of the shell. Yet they can't do it alone. Before they finish, these two sisters have an urgent message for the world. Sister of ice and snow, I offer you this shell and the story of the two sisters as testament, as declaration that despite everything, we will not leave. Instead, we will choose stone. We will choose to be rooted in this reef forever. They know their future is at stake. There is no time for complacency, and every moment wasted in silence is essentially complicity in their demise. In a nod to Al Gore and the failed promises of so-called environmental leaders, they demand that the world see beyond SUVs, ACs, their prepackaged convenience, their oil-slick dreams, beyond the belief that tomorrow will never happen, that this is merely an inconvenient truth. And so they rise like the tides and rise up in resistance. The title of the poem is a play on words of both the rising sea level that threatens to engulf their island and the rising resistance of climate activists who are defending their home. My sister, from one island to another, I give you these rocks as a reminder that our lives matter more than their power, that life in all forms demands the same respect we all give to money, that these issues affect each and every one of us. None of us is immune, and that each and every one of us has to decide if we will rise. This is echoed in Epeli Haufa's essay, where the power of the people to rise up and resist the hegemonic powers of destruction is key to their survival and ultimate liberation. She writes, Oceania is humanity rising from the depths of brine and regions of fire deeper still. Oceania is us. We are the sea. We are the ocean. We must wake up to this ancient truth and together use it to overturn all hegemonic views that aim ultimately to confine us again, physically and psychologically, in the tiny spaces which we have resisted accepting as our sole appointed place, and from which we have recently liberated ourselves. We must not allow anyone to belittle us again and take away our freedom. Thank you for watching. Rise up